go.
So for those who don't know, the Sonic series is celebrating its 35th anniversary this year, and as we've expected, the next mainline game is more than likely slated to be released in 2027, just like how we got Forces in 2017 and Frontiers in 2022. So before the game is inevitably revealed at either a Sonic Central or Summer Game Fest or whatever the hell, me and a few members of Team Chaos want to discuss with you all the main thing each of us is looking for from said game. What are these said things to be exact? Let's take a walk and find out. It's become a staple at this point for me to mention it, but I just want the damn Chao Garden back, man. We haven't had this feature return to a main game in any kind of meaningful way since SA2, and I don't like that game very much, so I'd rather not have to keep going back to it in order to engage with my little multicolored freaks. I'm gonna mention this again in a later video, but the Chao Garden is my favorite piece of side content that this series has ever introduced. Having somewhere to wind down from all the high action of the main story is, in my opinion, something that's very welcome. The foundation is already set. Just take what you have from SA2s and just add more to it. More Chao types, more mini games. In my What If I Made a Sonic Game video from like 4 years ago, I literally discussed ideas for new mini games, like a hide and seek one, for example. That'd be pretty fun. Being able to fully customize how your garden looks on some Animal Crossing or Brokopia type shit would also go hard. I want mine to look vastly different from other people's, because quite frankly, I'm a visionary. I know how to make shit look tough. I'm not like none of you niggas. And with the Chao types, we've seen plenty of unique Chao across different media. Hell, Chronicles had a whole ass garden with new designs there. There's a lot these niggas can choose from. Features like the whole Chaos Drive system, bullying them if you're an awful fucking person, and which character you use influencing their growth when they reincarnate are all things that should remain and be fleshed out upon as well. And that's another big thing for me. I don't just want the feature to come back. If it's gonna come back, do it right. Make it a genuine step up from the two that we've gotten in the past. Given the fact that an Adventure 3 is probably never going to happen in our timeline, I would rather not wait for that to be when we see the shit return next. And Iizuka is fucking playing with me at this point, because this nigga acknowledged the fact that it's the most requested feature that fans want to see return in a new game, so what's the hold up here? All encompassing, give me back my little blue freaks. Oh, and make it online so that we can trade and visit other people's gardens. Okay, bye.
Hi there, I'm Landy. I lead the Adrenaline Dubs channel on YouTube, and I voice Sonic for Sonic Chaos Adventure. So the little thing that I've chosen to talk about as my hope for the next Sonic game is that I hope the 3D character models see some updating. I might sound like a bit of a broken record with this because the 3D models are something a lot of people in the fandom have been criticizing lately, but I figured I would give my 2 cents and kind of explain why I feel the particular way that I do. Sonic characters over the years have each had several different models used in the games. Sometimes these models are all new, other times they're modifications of previous models. The current modern iterations of the character models I think were first seen in Shadow the Hedgehog, used for all the CGI stuff in that game. I think they were made by Blur Studio. And then a few games later, Sonic Unleashed would come out, and finally the characters in-game matched the models seen in that CGI. They're not the exact same models, since those are obviously meant for CGI, but they clearly act as master models or something that are used as a baseline for the models built for the games. So if you compare just Sonic across various Hedgehog Engine 1 games, starting with Unleashed, to Generations, to Lost World, the models are very similar. They just kind of modified things as they went. Generations took the Unleashed model, gave it a new mouth and some small optimizations, and Lost World took the Generations one and rearranged and shortened the quills. Colors is also Hedgehog Engine 1, and their model seems based on Unleashed, but I feel like it's more of an outlier since Generations didn't carry that forward and just stuck to Unleashed as its basis. Now, I'm beating a dead horse when I tell you I don't really like this iteration of the 3D models that much, but for what it's worth, I think they managed to look pretty good up to a certain point. I love the way Sonic looks in Unleashed and its associated CGI stuff. I think he looks pretty cool in Generations too, and I don't really know what happened in Lost World, but he looks fine there. You get the point though, we spent a pretty long time with this particular iteration of the models, even if they were modified a bit from game to game. So when Forces was teased, some people thought maybe this would be a huge leap for the series graphically, maybe Sonic and the gang would look better than ever. Then Forces comes out and the characters just kinda look okay. No envelope is really being pushed. The models are technically new, but they're not really any more expressive, they don't look that much better. better, and there are some changes made here and there that I'd argue are kinda detrimental to the designs. Like, just off the top of my head, Sonic inherits his quill shape from Lost World, and his head looks dumber and fatter because of it, which is a problem because the CGI and renders are still using the nicer quills you'd expect. Frontiers was pretty ambitious. They promised a lot, and they were doing something brand new for the series with the open world. But then Frontiers also uses this iteration of the models, and from what I can tell, they aren't really changed at all besides new textures. They still don't look that great, and they still aren't animated that great. You look at other stylized franchises making their big return like Ratchet and Clank, Crash Bandicoot, even Mario, which I felt was getting pretty plain. They've all come back into action with big boosts to character expressiveness and artistry. Sonic doesn't have to be like those, but it's a series that is literally founded on how stylized the characters are. You'd think they'd own it a little more often. When I look at most 2D Sonic art, I am almost immediately wowed. And back in the day, seeing the characters in Sonic Unleashed, especially Sonic himself with the animations and expressions he had, it gave me that same wow factor. I don't think they have to copy the 2D art outright, but I want to look at Sonic in 3D and know that it's the same cool guy that you see on the Sonic Adventure 2 box art. I want to see Tails with those naive teardrop-shaped eyes, Knuckles with his buff chest, you get the idea. More importantly, I also want to see these characters' animations and expressions taken to their limits. Shadow Generations, of all things, offers an interesting taste of what that might look like. The animation there is pretty damn good, but it's still using that foundation for the 3D style that specifically Forces and Frontiers kind of laid down, and I think there's still a lot of room for improvement. I think there's no better time for a soft refresh of Sonic's 3D identity, and I'm hoping I see something along those lines in the next Sonic game.
Hey guys, I'm Wesley Okojam, writer and producer here at Sonic Chaos Adventure, and I'm going to talk to you about the type of tone I'd like in the next Sonic game. However, to truly understand that, I'm going to have to paint a picture for you. So, with that said, lights. I don't have lights. Music. Thank you. The year was 2022. We were fresh off the heels of the 2010s. We hadn't had a mainline Sonic game since Sonic Forces. Everything was riding on this game, and it delivered. Sonic Frontiers was a breath of fresh air for the franchise. It was quiet, it was cold, it was melancholic. Unlike a lot of other Sonic games, it was gray, quiet, and muted. It told us the story of the ancients and their inevitable end. It asked us what the meaning of life was and challenged Sonic's friendships and made us reevaluate everything we knew. It was beautiful. And for the next Sonic game, I never want to see anything like it ever again. While it's true that Sonic Frontiers was exactly the type of Sonic story we needed following the 2010s, and I greatly appreciate it for what it is, I don't think that it's the type of tone I want out of the franchise moving forward. This isn't to say I don't want a Sonic game with depth and emotional maturity moving forward, just that I feel that the best Sonic stories are the ones that manage to balance their action and drama well. Stories like Unleashed, the adventure games, Black Knight, the list goes on. I think that Sonic games need to be fun and action-packed, while also leaving you a little something to chew on. And while I like the atmospheric tone of Sonic Frontiers, I wouldn't like for it to be the norm. For years, I was a bit worried of the massive success of Frontiers would be the future of Sonic stories, that it would be these melancholy, dreary games that just a lot of the fun would be missing moving forward. But thankfully, Shadow Generations took these fears away, as it managed to touch on the loss and sorrow of God damn it! Thankfully, Shadow Generations took those fears away, as it managed to touch on the loss and sorrow Shadow was dealing with Maria, as well as keeping the constant energy up, and that made for a really fun experience. More things like that, please.
When you think of Sonic the Hedgehog, what do you think of? I think of vivid colors, out-of-this-world settings and locations, Grand Metropolis, gimmicks, loops, rings, Grand Metropolis, enemies unique to each location, Grand Metropolis, scope, speed, and did I mention Grand Metropolis?
Shut up!
There are many things that I personally believe the 2000s era of Sonic handled expertly, to the point where the more recent stuff just doesn't hit the same. Above all else though, art direction is something I really hope the next game puts more emphasis on. I didn't think much of Frontiers, and it's not because I thought the game was boring or anything, it definitely isn't, but a lot of the settings just blend together in a way that is cohesive, yes, but on account of them being very simple aesthetics in their nature. A grassy mountainous island, a desert island, an island with a volcano, and 2 more grassy mountainous islands. Now I am more willing to give Chaos Island specifically a little more leeway, because mixing what's essentially the snow level of the game with the fire level is a very neat idea on paper, but it doesn't really do much with it. And I get that they wanted to tone down the wildness of the aesthetics to better fit the story, but it's not like interesting visuals and a serious story are mutually exclusive. I mean, Adventure 2 did a pretty good job at that, and hell, if they wanted to go the photorealistic route, Black Knight is also right there, and it still manages to look more memorable and unique, in my opinion at least. Which is saying something, because I'm not the biggest fan of medieval settings. Ironic, I know. Photorealism definitely has a place in Sonic stages, just not to this degree. I'm all for a well-designed stage, but I also want a well-designed stage, you know? To this day, I think Sonic Heroes has one of, if not the best, set of stages in any Sonic game if we're going on the art directors very clearly having fun coming up with wacky concepts like a castle that switches upside down or taking down Eggman's fleet one ship at a time. Every stage just has an inherent kinetic energy to them, kinda like Rise Star. Please bring back Rise Star. It really does look like a Mega Drive game brought into 3D, which I think is something that should have been more of a focus of the Heroes. If I had to choose something that was a bit more modern, I'm not the biggest fan of Sonic Colors, but it did have it right with its aesthetics. It used the space theme to its advantage and created so many memorable locations that, honestly, I'd say it's the next best thing, if not up there with Heroes. And even though Forces isn't exactly seen as a great game, neither am I a fan of its stage art direction. I do think the UI had quite a lot of personality, almost going for a brutalist, minimalistic idea that's meant to relay the bare necessities of information during the war. A little too simple, I'll admit, but the idea is actually not bad at all. I'd much prefer a more retro-futuristic vibe like Heroes had, glowing neon signs that stick out for all the right reasons. I love it. My point being, Sonic Team should be less afraid of not sticking to the status quo. It's what set the series apart in the 90s, and I have no doubt that it would be unique today, especially in an age of the redundant realism that Frontiers tried to go for. Colors was cool, and Heroes was awesome. And then I made this part of the video, which is cool and awesome.
Shut up!
Hey, I'm SpacedOut.png, the voice actor of Cordovan and Sage, and a promo artist and colorist for the SEA project. My section will be talking about how I would like to see future boss fights handled. When you think of a boss fight in a Sonic game, usually you think of a singular multi-phase boss confined into an arena-type area. And for the most part, that's pretty much how boss fights go, with an occasional throw some debris from the level at them to deal extra damage. The way boss fights are styled are pretty much identical in each game, with the only added gimmicks being sometimes you're playing as Super Sonic or sometimes you have a sword. Other than that, the basic premise of a boss fight in a Sonic game has been monotonous over the past 35 years of Sonic being Sonic. When it comes to scaling in a Sonic game, I can admit that recently there has been an improvement in how it is handled. I've always been a fan of the larger scaled boss fights like Perfect Chaos and BioLizard, but to be fair, I also really love games where you either fight things beyond your scale, or your scale is so grandiose that you get to do shit like step on buildings just because you're that huge. And I feel like the Titan boss fights really kind of hone in on that idea. And, you know, with the advancement of Sonic, I feel like there's more that can be done, especially with set scaling. Like, why don't we start incorporating level designs into boss fights? And I'm not just saying that the arena, you know, should be themed around a certain level, but rather the arena is the level. And I mean, they did it kind of once before in Generations, so I feel like that they could definitely do it again, given, you know, the advancement of Sonic, or at least what I hope is the advancement of Sonic. I've always loved the levels of Sonic, especially when you hit the right speed in them, but it feels now more than ever that Sonic Team is running out of ideas for levels, especially given the fact that they've just been reusing like previous levels for however long. And I don't think there's anything wrong with reusing them, but I feel like that would only be the case if they like introduce something new to these levels. And I feel like a perfect way to introduce something new to these levels is just by making the entire level an arena for a boss fight. For one, it'll be more engaging, and then it'll also call for a challenge because now you have to be aware of your surroundings while also fighting a boss. And, you know, for added bonus, they can also introduce boss gimmicks or level gimmicks that we haven't gotten to see anywhere else. Let's imagine that you're playing as Sonic and you're running through the narrow streets of Apodos, because I love Apodos. While Eggman is destroying the buildings, you can either dodge them or you can hit the debris back. And now you reach the second phase of the boss. Rather than Eggman just getting fired up, he has more attacks. He gets fired up, and Sonic is now, for whatever reason, on top of whatever mech he has for this level. And it is up to you to steer it through the streets, being able to use hazards to damage Eggman and the mech. And then, you know, at the end of the level, sure, the climax could be in an arena, because I feel like that's a staple, and that's also probably a good wrap-up. But at least it'll have, you know, a build-up, a seamless transition to it that we don't really, you know, get much. And I'm not saying that there's like no boss in the history of Sonic that doesn't have like something like this, or at least like a transition into it, because that's not the case. There definitely are, but like, you know, recently, especially given the cyberspace levels, we haven't gotten any of that. And, you know, with this concept in mind, I feel like it would be interesting to, like, you know, explore it, further develop it, see where else we can go with it.
Hello everyone, I am the Guy Silver, and I am the voice of Dr. Robotnik in Sonic Chaos Adventure. What I would personally like to see, See, I have a few things. I have very strong opinions on the franchise as a whole, but what I would like to see overall is something akin to Frontiers, but more like a Souls-like. Here's the thing though, I'm not a massive fan of Dark Soul-esque games. I'm not massive on them at all. But there's elements of Frontiers that could make for an interesting open world. Well, it doesn't necessarily have to be open world, but a Sonic-esque Dark Souls game. You saw the combat in Sonic Frontiers. Take away the skill tree, that thing was absolutely pointless. Give us like the stomp and the ability to projectile. That's about it. That's all anyone ever uses half the time. No one used the zigzag, no one used the fly kick, no one used any of those, apart from maybe the ball attack. Other than that, get rid of the skill tree, give us innate abilities, and give us the ability to just become stronger. Like if Sonic had a ring on his wrist or something that you could apply attributes to, such as higher strength, higher defense, higher projectile attack, or resilience to freeze attacks, fire attacks, and you can make multiple rings, like in Sonic and the Secret Rings. I understand at this moment in my segment it just comes across like I'm just trying to pitch a Souls-like game but Sonic. But that's basically what I'm looking for, like a Sonic Souls-like game where you travel through one area, taking on multiple massive bad guys as Sonic. No fixed cameras, no fixed anything, just let's us walk around, let's us attack people, dodge, hide from massive scary enemies that can chase us across areas. I want to see a game that's built from the foundation of Frontiers, what worked well. Get rid of the oversaturated platforming, the platforming in the middle of the air, that was disgusting. I don't mind if it's in a cartoonish world or realistic world. A Sonic Dark Souls-esque game where you're running around like a little blue hedgehog that goes zoom, taking on massive enemies in combat and discovering some ancient secrets of some world. Like, think of it like a Frontiers overhaul of sorts. I think there's room for such an idea. It doesn't have to be like super dark or even super cheerful or anything like that. Like, it doesn't have to be an extreme. It could just be an exciting new adventure. And for the love of God, please, let's not have 9 different currencies again. That was just a headache to get over. Run, hide, and combat. That's all that needs to be gameplay-wise. That's all that needs to be. From the foundation of the Frontiers, that's what I personally would like to see. Is it going to happen? Probably not. Being a cynic, with the success of Sonic X Shadow Generations, they're probably just going to make something like that again, which is a real waste of the use of the 3D camera, but hey-ho, you can't have everything in life. All in all, though, that's what I would like. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye! Have a lovely day!
Hey everyone, Mark our Gamer Dude here, and I'm one of the extra voices in the series Sonic Chaos Adventure. One of my hopes for Sonic in the future is that we get video games or stories focusing on other Sonic characters. Like, for example, a story focusing on Knuckles' backstory of his Echidna tribe and everything, Blaze's world, Silver's future. All those characters right there have so much potential to have their own video game, a story focusing on them. We love Sonic, but I would much rather have a story focusing on them because they have so much potential in their worlds. We don't know much about Blaze's world aside from Marine and some of the pirates. We don't know what other kingdoms are there. Does she have any other rivals? Like, give her own rival in Fatima in her world. And then for Silver, we don't know much about his future. We need to know more about it. Does he have friends of his own in the future? We don't know. And I really hope that Sega allows for that mandate to not explore his future or Blaze's world go away, because it would be so great to have any story focusing on them. And then, of course, also, when I mentioned earlier, Knuckles as well.
Hey everybody, this is Gavin. I'm a voice actor for Sonic Chaos Adventure, so you may hear like a scream or two from me. However, I feel throughout this video we have not talked about the elephant in the room. Yes, the freaking music. Like, it is one of the most integral parts of the entire franchise's identity. I don't even know where the franchise would even look the same without the music being what it is and so expressive. From that, we have received like pop punk, EDM, metalcore, which like Kellen Quinn did for Sonic Frontiers. Like, we're just going crazy. And then we have Crush 40, my favorite, which, you know, we get Live and Learn, his world. I eat that up, I'm sorry. And you know that video, this cinematic for Sonic Adventure when Chaos comes out the building and he screams at you? That is so ingrained in my brain, it's insane. And having this diverse artists like Wiz Khalifa, Ty Dolla $ign, Lil Yachty, all in the Sonic movie, and then we had Kid Cudi in the second one, it really does make you wonder, how will they take music next in the core series, right? So we know that The Weeknd actually went to Sega headquarters and took pictures, and so did Lil Uzi Vert. Now, I'm not saying there's gonna be a collaboration or anything, but I can sure hope so, especially when we saw pictures of them, you know, being inspired by Michael Jackson with their clothing. Nonetheless, it makes me wonder, is it time to shake up the meta where we change the art style once more or have a new model? I don't know, but it really could influence the music heavily as well. We had Sonic Rush do that, we had Sonic Riders. All of those were influenced by its art style and music, or at least to me. But let's imagine the new era being kicked off with The Weeknd and Lil Uzi. Yeah, that would be crazy.
Do you like Green Hill Zone, Chemical Plant, Sky Sanctuary? Of course you don't. You're a Sonic fan. You've been sick of seeing these zones for the past 14 years. And for the next Sonic game, I want none of these levels anywhere near the game. In Planet Wisp, City Escape, don't think you're safe. I know exactly what you are. Seriously though, if there's one thing I want out of this next game, then it has to be all unique locations. No more of these same locations that we've been seeing since generations. It was one thing when it was in the likes of Mania, and hell, I'll even give you somewhat of a pass with Forces because there was at least an attempt to do things with them. Because of the whole global takeover, though sand isn't really anything of a riveting change. But I want all new zones, new locales. Yeah, you can do a green zone, but I don't want another Green Hill clone. You can do a temple zone, but can it not be Sky Sanctuary? Luckily, it seems that Shadowgen's hub world and a lot of the zones in Team Sonic Racing show that Sonic Team has at least what it takes to do original locations. I just hope that they can apply that skill and make it happen within the next game.
Spectacon has always been a part of the Sonic series, that much is true. As I've mentioned before, the aesthetics of the series helped to make it unique from its contemporaries back in the 90s and the early 2000s. And while there has been some debate on whether or not the games rely too heavily on it now, there's no denying that it's probably one of the only aspects of the series' identity that stayed consistent throughout the entire franchise. Through the good and the bad, you can at least bet that the series will deliver on visuals. Unless it's Sonic Frontiers on the Switch. That's why one of the things that I hope remains in the games going forward are the mid-stage cutscenes. Shadow Generations had quite a few of them and they were honestly spectacular. They were flashy, they can scope, and they give us probably the best animation we've ever seen in a Sonic game so far. It's incredible what the profile of 3 blockbuster movies can accomplish. Now, there is the common and somewhat valid critique that the cutscenes go on for a bit too long, and I do have to agree for the most part. They're cool when you're playing the game for the first time, of course, but on repeat playthroughs, when you're just trying to get your best time, they can serve as detrimental pace breakers. Still eye candy, of course, but not something I want to watch over and over again. On the other hand though, I do think having mid-stage cutscenes in general could serve as a short little breather between stage sections, assuming the next game isn't slower than Erosion like the previous two. And that's why I think the balance should be met. Not so short that it can't be digested properly by the player, but not as long as the Tokyo DLC stage. I mean, my god. I think it's fair to say the animation of the series has evolved a lot since the 2010s. Character movements are more fluid, fighting animations are more kinetic, they don't emote with their eyelids most of the time, and the art direction, if done well, can add to the overall bigger picture and aesthetic. Kinda like Rise stuff, having more badass stuff to look at, kinda like a reward for getting past a difficult section of the stage or something along those lines, would be really cool. And honestly, considering what we've been shown with Frontiers and Shadow Generations, I have no doubt that the next game is going to be visual eye candy.
Hey, I'm Lachlan. You might be wondering, who invited this guy, but that's cause I'm part of Team Chaos as one of the video editors for Sonic Chaos Adventure. I didn't break into the booth, trust me. If there's one thing I'm deeply wishing for with the next mainline game is that they not only keep the open zone format, which I'm guessing they'll do, but strengthen this concept tenfold. Now, when I say strengthen, I also mean strengthening its appeal to the player, making it so you wouldn't even consider stuff like fast travel no matter how far you're into the game. Ironing out all the creases and kinks that were present with Frontiers and its islands designs are a given, but I really want them to improve on the sandbox element of the open zone design, making the lands feel built for not only player experimentation, but expression in mind too. I feel like a Dream Sonic game to many is one that captures that expansive, serene, and free-flowing nature present in the Sonic CD opening, booting up the game to a new, sprawling, and exciting vista, all for you to dash around in whenever you feel that rush. See, I'm the type that just boots up Marvel Spider-Man 2 just to swing around New York for a bit. There's something strangely meditative about getting out a playlist, muting the in-game music, and just swinging across the city that never sleeps. It's the closest you can get to indulging in that childlike wonder of being Spider-Man. You have plenty of ways to express yourself through air tricks, movement options, camera, even down to the very routes you take. I just think there's some untapped potential there when it comes to Sonic especially, a character with one of the most fun and unique movesets in gaming. Frontiers can fit that niche void, but only partially. The islands aren't nearly as attuned to Sonic's movement as they could be. The very environment should be built for him, not random floating assault courses to make up for it. So I truly hope that the next mainline Sonic game makes uses of its environments more, allowing for players to access these vast playgrounds to indulge in Sonic's speed, agility, and style. A game that lets the people really step into Sonic's shoes whenever they feel like it.
Beating another dead horse at this point, this poor barn, I'm so sorry. Multiple playable characters is a must for me. Mr. Step in the Right Direction trademark Frontiers over here, living up to its full government name, introduced us to a playable Amy, Tails, and Knuckles for the first time in over a decade. And well, they were certainly in the game alright. It's not all bad. Two of them play the best either of them have in a 3D mainline game, and Knuckles is also here. But I give them the benefit of the doubt, due to this being the first time all three of them were playable in over a decade. Like I mentioned before, Jesus fucking Christ. But all this did was make me want the next game to fully commit to having characters other than Sonic a part of the action from the jump. The groundwork for the aforementioned 3 is there, they just need to be cleaned up, and Shadow also now has a recent entry to pull from. The goal is to make everyone have unique enough abilities from each other to warrant playing as all of them, and bonus points if they're integrated into the story. I don't know how anyone else feels about this, but one of the things I genuinely did like about 06 was how the character switching was handled in stages. In Sonic's Aquatic Base, for example, you start out as the man himself, and you get to an area that only Tails can traverse, so the game switches you to him, and then the same thing happens later with Knuckles. There's like an added bit of storytelling to make it seem like all three of them are needed to make it through the stage, and I fucks with that heavy. As for who I want to be playable, to be honest, my ideal cast is the 9 from 06 plus Cream, Whisper, and Tangle, separated as such. Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles, Shadow, Rouge, and Omega, Silver, Blaze, and Whisper, Amy, Cream, and Tangle. Is that a lot? Yes. Would it be difficult to come up with a story that warrants having all 12 of them present? Also yes, but if done correctly, it could be fire. I kind of dove into this a bit in a video that I made 4 years ago, Jesus fucking Christ, but there's always ways to make this work. Sonic, Shadow, Tails, Amy, and Knuckles are already figured out mostly. They all need to just be polished. Blaze can literally play like Sonic, just with better air control and slight differences. Same with Rouge and Knuckles, and Cream and Tails. To simplify it even more, P06 has the perfect example of how I want the other 9 to play. Where things get interesting is with Tangle and Whisper. I would go into a deep dive, but there's like 10 plus other people in this video, so we're gonna have to save that for a next time. That says another time, but I'm just gonna keep going anyway because this is already getting broken up enough. The point is, multiple playable characters is something I need in the next game. I don't know how they're gonna do it, just figure it out. Pretty please.
Hello everyone, my name is Rodalus2. You might recognize me from such outstanding performances as those guards who got killed in the last episode of Sonic Chaos Adventures and Cubot. Hi boss man! Remember that one? Instant classic, really sticks with you, makes you think. Anyway, it's from that great depth of ethos that I draw my hopes for the next game. Chief among them is that it will not be an open world game. It might be a little bit late for that one, considering the next game is rumored to be a Frontier sequel, but hear me out. I don't think that an open-world Sonic game is a successful formula. I know people liked the last one, but my concerns are the same now as they were when it was first announced. First off, the world can feel empty and confusing to navigate. An open-world game lives or dies by its navigability. Important landmarks, regions, even towns and villages all work together to give the player a mental map of where they are. Whether the game was rushed or not, this core facet was neglected. The development team on Sonic Frontiers was unable to fill their open world with many points of interest. There are a few landmarks to be sure, but not much to engage with if you approach them at the wrong time. I found myself running around for literally hours just looking for the next version of my friend that I needed to talk to in order to progress the story. There were no NPCs to interact with to make the world feel like it was lived in. I understand, narratively speaking, it wasn't a lived-in world, which raises the questions, why make it an open world at all? Secondly, the character controls are inconsistent by design to suit two gameplay modes with similar mechanics. The developers of Sonic Frontiers handed the controls to the player quite literally, allowing adjustments to the character's movement parameters. This only affected the overworld and not the cyberspace levels, ensuring that you, as the player, would have a mismatched experience, controlling Sonic one way in one game mode and being locked into a completely different set of parameters in another, which can be disorienting, at least to me anyway. This shows a lack of confidence from the developers regarding the best way to play Sonic in an open world context, which means that there was no singular point of truth for level designers in the open world map to refer to when it comes to exactly how high Sonic can jump, how fast he can run, how far a gap he can clear. So outside of the cyberspace levels, which are fine-tuned and designed for a set list of parameters, the open world level design cannot be straightforward, relying on cheap barriers like invisible walls or unclimbable slopes to keep the player relegated to certain boundaries. Even the copious use of grind rails seems to stem from that same lack of confidence. The open world doesn't feel like it was made for Sonic. It feels like a world that was ported into the Hedgehog engine, and then some elements were added to make it more traversable. My third concern is that the type of game best suited to an open world experience is a slower paced and explorative one. Sonic is fast. I think an open world game in the Sonic franchise could be doable if it wasn't for the fact that we were playing as Sonic the Hedgehog. Sonic the Hedgehog is a fast character who can cover a lot of ground really quickly. The levels are visually interesting, but don't really hold up under much visual scrutiny because they are not designed to be closely examined or explored. They're essentially hallways for Sonic to run from point A to point B in. An open world game is usually about exploration and discovery. Think of the last good open world game you've played. In my mind, Legends of Zelda, Breath of the Wild, Horizon Zero Dawn, and Shrouded. End of list. I don't play a lot of open world games. All of those games that I mentioned are basically played at the human scale to start with, which means that in the early game, you are exploring the world, discovering where everything is, picking up side quests, piecing together the main story, and the environment provides you all of the challenges that you would expect to find as a person who can only move at 5 miles an hour and cannot fly. It's not until the late game that you have mastered the environment, won all of the upgrades, that lets you fast travel or fly from one end of the map to the other. By that point, you've explored all the caves and experienced all the unique dungeons at a slower pace, and your reward is the ability to break the game a little. The purpose of an open world is to create a sense of immersion. The environment is a real obstacle that you can't bypass, so you need to do a little role-playing to figure out how to navigate it. And the discoveries you make along the way add to that experience. Sonic Frontiers open world bypasses all of that by virtue of the fact that you play as Sonic, the fastest thing alive. You can tear across the islands at an incredible speed, meaning that even if there were discoveries to make, you are almost guaranteed to miss them on your way to the game's only real means of progression, the cyberspace levels, or just collecting bits to get one of the many copies of your friends strewn around the map to talk to you. This ties back into the first concern about the world feeling empty, by the way. To facilitate Sonic's speed, the world needs to be massive, but you lose the granular complexity of an open world. Because of this, the place feels stretched out and bland. I haven't had a chance to play Sonic X Shadow Generations yet, but from what I have seen, the solution to this issue is a much more self-contained hub and level format, where the platforming experience across both game modes is the same. All that said, I don't believe the next mainline Sonic game will be as rushed or made under the same constraints as the first one, fingers crossed. They might fix every one of the issues that I brought up today, which would be cool. But at the same time, I think they can avoid every one of those problems by making a game that is more focused and straightforward than an open world game. Because a real, honest-to-goodness open-world Sonic game would be incredibly ambitious, more so than the game that they tried to make last time. Anyway, those are just my thoughts, my hope for the next Sonic game in the mainline series. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. I've been Rodolus, and you've been wonderful. Goodbye!
Hi, I'm Micah. I am one of the video editors for this wonderful project, Sonic Chaos Adventure. Alright, so, gun to my head, name one thing you want from the next Sonic title. I really enjoy adventures like Sonic Adventure 2 and Sonic Unleashed. Those stories to me are like what I think Sonic is at like the core, is just a guy who just goes around the world, you know, looking for adventure. With that being said, with the way that those stories or those games work, I would like more of a globe-trotting adventure where one day or one time we're at this stage and then something happens, a cutscene happens, we're like, oh, Tails, we gotta go to this place because Eggman has some super secret base that we have to go scout out or something. And then the following stage, they go to that base or whatever. I just like seeing new environments within Sonic and having him interact with everything in the world within it, because it's just amazing to me how this like blue cartoonish looking hedgehog is able to fit in such a realistic environment. But despite him being cartoonish, there is a sense of like, oh yeah, he would totally be here because that's just Sonic the Hedgehog. Yeah, Sonic the Hedgehog, he just does this. This is like an average like Thursday for him. So I would want more globe-trotting adventures featuring the Blue Rat.
Hi, I'm a Blue Moon 88. I voice Tails and Blaze in this amazing series, and something I would love to see in the new Sonic games that are coming out. I think it would be fun to have something more like Animal Crossing or Pokopia, but with Sonic characters. Maybe they're rebuilding the resistance after Eggman decimates their planet or something like that. Just something relaxed and fun, and there's a lot of fan fiction out there, so I think that would really feed into that, and you can build little houses and help people make gardens or beautiful beautify the area, so I think that would be a lot of fun. So that's what I would love to see. Thanks for supporting the series.
Okay, I'm just gonna get straight to the point. We need a better combat system. We all know Sonic has to run fast, guy. That much is clear. But something that we've also been starting to realize is that these hogs can throw hands. Action in Sonic is an aspect I've always loved, whether it be through the official games like the Werehog in Unleashed, or the fan-made content like Nazo Unleashed or SMBZ that had Sonic straight blitzing his opponent into oblivion. But when I heard that Sonic Frontiers had a combat system with skills to unlock and master, boy, you already know I was locked in. When I let Frontiers simmer a bit, I've come to the conclusion that combat should be a mainstay for the franchise going forward for this new open zone style of games. Under one condition: it gets drastically improved. I like the combat enough in Frontiers, it's simple and to the point, but it doesn't scream Sonic to me, you know? Like, yeah, there's a zigzag attack, flurry of winds being kicked out, and an after image attack, but the combat still feels stationary, not dynamic enough to fit the blue blur. Hearing about combat for Sonic, I was expecting the franchise to take notes from other action series, like Devil May Cry, Bayonetta, and the like. I know it would be aping other games, but 1, this wouldn't be the first time. 2, these games are great for a reason. And 3, I still heavily believe Sonic can be distinct and innovative with his combat while taking the fundamentals of these other action games. Emphasize Sonic dodging and rushing down the enemy, that you're too fast for them to even react and blitz them. I'd take perfect dodging any day and parrying. Spruce up side loop a bit. While you're at it, add even more combat techniques that involve movement, like rolling and boosting. Screw it, add a style meter. We already love getting ranks at boost levels, why not test our skills in the open zone as well? All these things being implemented could drive combat to be a fantastic addition to this new era of the series. It has potential, and I genuinely want to see it evolve to a point that it becomes addictive to pull off combos on enemies, rivals, and bosses alike. The Titan fights are the best in this series, there's no doubt about it. But imagine how cool they'd be if we were more involved in the fight instead of constant QTEs and waiting for the boss to screw up. Imagine how cool it'd be to have your combat tested against well-known powerhouses like Knuckles, Blaze, Shadow, or Metal. Imagine how sick it would be to have a 1v1 fight as Super Sonic with someone else that has a super form. You cannot be the sickest shit ever, oh my god! But yeah, biggest hope for the next game is that we get combat spruced up a bit to be even more fun than it already is. We'll make fighting guardians and bosses more enticing, and it'd give players a way to express themselves while playing the game. That's why I just really want Sonic to have a Dante v. Virgil moment in the game. You cannot tell me that shit would be sick. Please let me have this thing.
Hi there, my name is Ace Locke. I'm a voice actor for Sonic Chaos Adventures, playing both Orbot and Commander Towers. And as for what I want to see in the next Sonic game, I want to see the return of immersive narrative third person, and the return of Sonic becoming more fantastical and mysterious again. Now, when it comes to Sonic stories, there are kind of few and far in between that I can think of as truly standing out as exemplary, going above and beyond what was ever asked of them from the beginning concept phases. And for me, what springs to mind is the storybook games and Frontiers, which, at their core, seem increasingly simple from a narrative outlook, while also being some of the heaviest in the series from a perspective of context. All of these games start in very similar ways. Two of them because they're part of the same duology, but Frontier stands with them as well because of one particular thing. Sonic, along with the player, isn't important to an already ongoing conflict found within wherever we're taking this adventure. The book games and Frontiers have very similar setups in this manner, where Sonic had next to nothing to do with the conflicts simmering under the surface. In the books Sonic was reading, those were literally just fucking books. They were sitting on his shelves. In Frontiers, the ancients and the history of the Starfall Islands were not of any interest to Sonic. just the Chaos Emeralds, because they were there. He was brought into a millennia-old conflict that actually happened. What helps these stories hit so hard is that we, the player, following along with Sonic's perspective, are flung into a world with a conflict already started and laid out in front of us to deal with. In Frontiers' case, it's Sonic searching for something that was unknowingly connected to the Ancients, and because of Eggman's flittering little fucking sausage fingers touching all up in that shit he shouldn't be, Sonic gets roped into something that originally wasn't his business. What connects all of these games together is a greater voice of reason that works alongside Sonic for almost the entire game, seemingly leading us towards the greater purpose that Sonic is supposed to find within the pages of ancient history, or ancient fiction in other cases. Shara, Merlina, and the End from Frontiers are all voices of greater reason that tell Sonic certain things, while also hiding bits of information that would clue him into things he would have no other reason to be aware of. These characters, unlike most, are able to manipulate around Sonic because of this, showing that Sonic, the flat character that he has, can in fact be toyed with to make a harder-hitting narrative. At the same time, we're strung along with him, being his third-person perspective in the story. And it's within this where these stories are so different and interesting to interact with in comparison to everything else. We, and Sonic himself, are not being treated as two different entities seeing these stories from different sides. Sonic is not the first person's perspective, and we're not relegated to the third person. In these stories, we, the player, and Sonic, the character, inhabit the same third-person perspective from which the story then unfolds. This is something that I personally want to see a lot more of. Sonic not being this central character in a conflict's origin. In the storybook games and in Frontiers, once he learns about the conflict, he shows up. He's a little bit of a small smirk, maybe a grimace depending on how serious it is, like in Black Knight, but he knows that whatever has caused all of this destruction is going to be brought to life, even if it means having to play the role of a villain in the eyes of many. He can't be the hero every time. That's also because he doesn't want to be. He just wants to do what feels right to him. In every single one of these games, Sonic is pushed to his own limit because he refuses to give up and fall from his own path of morality. That he refuses to do anything but what feels right in his own heart. A good example of this is when Sonic forgives Shara in fighting the Eraser Djinn. Sonic's life is put at risk by the flame on his chest. At the end of it all, when the Djinn is sealed away and only one wish remains for Sonic as the master of the Genie of the Ring, he doesn't use it for himself, but for her. Because no matter how you try and spin it, Shara loved Eraser. That was her husband. His wish to give her a pile of handkerchiefs so that she doesn't have to feel bad about being sad anymore. In Black Knight, even after learning about Merlina's deceits and using Sonic to get rid of the false King Arthur to obtain his scabbard, our first ever interaction with Merlina after receiving Caliburn at the very start of the journey has us see that she fears death and the inevitability of it all coming to an end. He's not angry with Merlina as he arrives to the final confrontation. He just wants to know why. He doesn't want to fight her either. And of course, Sonic's entire thing is freedom. It's what makes him sealing away Eraser Djinn so, impactful. In the storybook games especially, we're not given that answer. I'd have to re-go through all the Frontiers again to confirm if he ever does try and explain himself or not, but from what I remember, he never explicitly says why he feels the need to do this, just that he does what he feels is right. That's the only reason we're ever given. That's not what a hero says. That's what a normal-ass guy says. That's what I want back for the next game. I want Sonic to go back to being special by his innate mystery and ability to not be special. Yes, he's fast, the fastest natural thing alive, but outside from that, he really just is a normal guy who does the right thing even if others disagree. Or even if people think he is kind of a villain at the end of the day. He did what he feels like is right. And that's all that matters.
I think it's finally time for humans to make a return to the main Sonic canon, and I think using them in a new game would be a good way to do so. We already got some good usage of characters like Maria and Gerald in Shadow Generations, Commander Tower in both Chaotix Case Files and Dark Beginnings, and Tori remains ever elusive in regards to what her true purpose is, so I think it's time to let them have a comeback in the series for real. I think that the world of Sonic the Hedgehog would honestly be at its best if it were a mix of humans and islanders like Sonic and Friends. So I think now, with an establishing game like Frontiers, and the clear intent for humans to return to the canon with case files, human characters should really cement their place in the world in the next game. This could be anything from simply being NPCs in a city that could give out missions, shopkeepers, light references to GUN or things like that, or even important roles in the narrative. But I think it do numbers in regards to fleshing out Sonic's world, and I think it's finally time to see some more humans, just to better populate it. Basically just have them mix in with the furries as well, like just humans and furries, make them both coexist. Chaotix Case Files did a really, really good job at that, and I just want something like that to return to the franchise. This is me going off script, but yeah, bring me back humans. Let me have humans.
Now, what I'm gonna say may sound indelicate, but I propose that the series strengthens its assimilation with the IDW comics. I know they're already confirmed to be canon to the games and vice versa, but I want to see that fully in the new game. I want to see the characters actually show up in some way, shape or form in the mainland games, because truth be told, there are a lot of aspects in the comics that I genuinely think would be really cool to see acknowledged or mentioned in the games. Whisper, Tangle, Sergeant Kit, the Metal Virus, the Phantom Rider. I know we do technically get all these things in some way, shape or form, with Tangle and Whisper being in Crossworlds and KOX Case Files, Sage being in the comics now, and a few other things, but that's just it. These aren't mainline, they're just side games and flavor media. Good side content and flavor media, don't get me wrong. But in the next game, I want explicit mentions of events that happened in the comics and appearances of IDW characters with actual voices. It may be some players in the dark, but if it's written well, I guarantee you it won't be a problem. It would give fans incentive to buy the comics and learn more about these adventures that the characters are talking about. I think there's a really neat novelty about the comics being sort of in between adventures, between the games. Case Files was a good stepping stone for what could eventually become a stronger harmony between all different mediums that the franchise is involved with. If the movies, which have such radically different interpretations of the characters, including Sonic himself, can affect the games, I'm sure we can make some room for the comics that are actually canon. I think Sega is sitting on a gold mine, and there's so much untapped potential here. Kinda like Rise stuff. When the next game does come out, I want to feel like I'm actually in this world that they're trying to immerse us in. And bringing these characters that a good portion of the fanbase are already familiar with will help immensely with that, while also introducing them to the wider fanbase. It just works, and I hope it's the case.
To round off this video, the last thing that I really want from this game, and what I think we all want, is just for this shit to be good, man. Sonic has been the potential man for God knows how long. Step in the right direction is this franchise's Nintendo seal of approval at this point, because it's the right direction and never the damn destination. And to be honest, this has been the case for essentially every damn 3D game, even my favorite ones. Unleashed has the highest production value of any of the games, but it's brought down by the Werehog to the majority. I personally am fine with it. The metal progression and high learning curve for beginners. Colors had some of the most creative stage themes in the series, but the story was ass and the gameplay was majority 2D with really blocky level design. Generations had damn near flawless level design on every stage not named Planet West, but its biggest issue is that the really good level design is used on stage themes that we've seen before. Granted, it's the first time they did this, so it wasn't egregious yet, but they learned all the wrong lessons from this game, which continued the cycle of them continuing to reuse stages. Frontiers gave us a fresh new formula for the series after the stale garbage of the 2010s, Colors and Gens being the exception, but the game is also very unfinished. Shadow Gens has the exact same issues as Sonic Gens. Outstanding level design and gameplay, but the game is too short again, and the stages were shit, What? And the stages are shit we've seen before. Thank you. What the fuck is going on? I think you get the idea. There's always something holding the games back from being what they can truly be. And after all of this experimenting and starting over, Sega and Sonic team need to just take what worked with Frontiers and Shadow Gens, throw them in a blender, while completely removing everything that didn't. With this in mind, actually, I feel like the recipe for the best Sonic game ever made is lying between these 4 games right here. If they took the ambition, playable characters, supersonic gameplay, and runtime from Frontiers, the type of camera movement, in-game animation quality, and music from Gens, the size, scope, polish, music, world building, and sense of adventure from Unleashed, and the story writing, level design, cutscene animation, and world design of Shadow Gens, we'd literally be sitting, that says dealing, we'd literally be dealing with something genuinely amazing. No questions asked. I know what this series is capable of. Shit, my nigga, we all do. That's why we came here together, I would say today, but this video has been in the works for a couple of months now. That's not the point, but we came together to make this video in the first place because we know what he can do. If Sega and Sonic team just lock in the same way the rest of these companies are, or shit, the way that Sega has their other franchises looking right now, I'm telling you, we're in for some straight gas. So no more steps in the right direction, no more almost there, no more we're close. Reach the damn destination this time. Please, bruh. That's all I ask. Fuck.
Getting Team Sonic back together.
That's gonna be tough. And to make matters worse, I'm pretty sure none of them want to speak to us ever again.
Yeah, that would explain the whole leaving thing.
Okay. So, who do we talk to first?
I think I have a pretty good idea.
Oh